Mother-in-law kicks pregnant daughter-in-law out of the house. She leaves with only one sheep, but destiny changed everything. Emily Thompson was 7 months pregnant when her mother-in-law Margaret pointed to the door of the house and shouted that she was no longer welcome there. The torrential rain beating down on the farm in Riverdale, in the countryside of Oklahoma, seemed to reflect the drama unfolding on that Sunday afternoon. The 30-year-old woman looked at her husband Brandon, hoping he would take some action, but the man remained silent, his hands on his face, unable to stand up to his mother. Margaret had discovered something that made her furious, something that would forever change the dynamics of that family. "You got pregnant on purpose to trap my son," shouted Margaret, her eyes red with anger. "Did you think I wouldn't find out that you were separating before the pregnancy showed up?" Emily felt the ground give way beneath her feet. How had Margaret found out about the divorce papers that Brandon had prepared? She picked up her small, already packed bag, knowing this moment would come sooner or later, and walked to the backyard where Snowball, her white pet sheep, was. The sheep had been a gift from her grandmother Dorothy when she turned 15. All these years, Snowball had been her only constant companion, especially during the most difficult times of her marriage to Brandon. The bond between them was inexplicable, almost telepathic. Margaret appeared on the porch of the wooden house, hands on her hips. "And take that worthless sheep with you. I don't even want to see your shadows around here." Brandon finally approached, but when he opened his mouth to speak, his mother cut him off. "You stay quiet, Brandon. This woman deceived you. She got pregnant behind your back just so you couldn't get rid of her." Emily hugged Snowball, who seemed to understand the gravity of the situation. The sheep was special, different from all the others she had ever known. Its wool was softer, its eyes more expressive, and it had impressive intelligence. The rain intensified as Emily began walking down the dirt road, holding Snowball in her arms. The weight of her belly and the sheep made each step a challenge. She had nowhere to go. Her parents had passed away 5 years ago, and the only family she had left was the very one kicking her out. After 2 hours of walking in the rain, Emily spotted an abandoned shed by the side of the road. The wooden structure was in poor condition, but at least it offered shelter. She went in with Snowball and settled in a corner on some old feed sacks. The night was long and cold. Emily couldn't sleep, worried about the baby and unsure what she would do the next day. Snowball stayed close to her, as if protecting both its owner and the unborn child. At dawn, Emily heard footsteps approaching the shed. A woman about 70 years old appeared at the entrance, wearing a straw hat and carrying a basket. "Good morning, dear. I'm Martha. I live in the yellow house up ahead. I saw you passing by last night and brought a few things." The kindness of that woman brought tears to Emily's eyes. Martha had brought bread, warm milk, a clean blanket, and even hay for Snowball. "Thank you, Miss Martha. I don't have a way to pay you back right now, but—" "No need to pay anything, child. A pregnant woman out in the rain? You wouldn't even do that to a stray dog. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing." Martha sat down next to Emily and began asking questions about her situation. When she learned about the eviction, she shook her head, outraged. "That Margaret has always been too proud. I knew her mother, Ms. Josephine, who was a saint. He must be turning in his grave seeing his daughter act like this." As they talked, Martha noticed something strange about Snowball. The ewe was producing milk, even without having had any recent lambs. It was unusual, but the elderly woman immediately recognized what that meant. "Young lady, this ewe of yours is special. My husband raised cattle and sheep for 50 years. I've never seen a female produce milk of this quality without nursing." Emily didn't understand what Martha was talking about, but the woman continued examining Snowball with growing interest. "This type of ewe is rare. Her wool, the coloring, the shape of her head, and this milk. I've heard stories of special sheep worth a fortune." The information planted a seed of hope in Emily's heart. If Snowball really was valuable, perhaps she could support herself until the baby was born. Martha offered to let Emily stay in her house, but the young woman preferred to remain in the shed. She felt she needed to prove to herself that she could be independent, even under the most adverse circumstances. During the following week, Martha visited Emily daily, always bringing food and warm conversation. It was through her that Emily learned that Margaret was spreading around town that her daughter-in-law had stolen a valuable sheep from the family property. "She's telling everyone that you ran off with the most expensive animal on the farm. Some people believe it, others don't." This news hit Emily like a punch in the stomach. Snowball had been hers since she was a teenager, a gift from her own grandmother. She had documents proving it, stored in a memory box she had left at Margaret's house. Brandon showed up at the shed on a rainy afternoon, 3 weeks after the expulsion. He was thin, with deep, dark circles and unshaven stubble. Emily noticed he had lost weight and seemed tormented. I need to talk to you." "Now you want to talk? Where were you when your mother threw me out in the rain?" Brandon approached, but Snowball positioned herself between them, as if protecting Emily. The animal seemed to sense that this man brought conflict. "My mother found the divorce papers in my room. She thought you knew and got pregnant to blackmail me. And you didn't tell her that you were the one who asked for the divorce, that I didn't even know about the papers." Brandon lowered his head, confirming Emily's suspicion. He had let his mother believe the version that suited her best, even though he knew the truth. "I was confused, Em. When I found out about the pregnancy, I didn't know what to do anymore. Part of me was happy, part was scared. And now, what do you want?" "I want you to come back. Let's give our family a chance." Emily laughed bitterly. Her belly was bigger, heavier, and she felt the baby moving constantly. The last few weeks in the shed had been a period of deep reflection about what she really wanted from life. "Will your mother accept me back?" "She'll have to. I'm a married man and about to be a father." At that moment, Emily realized that Brandon still hadn't matured. He spoke as if he could simply order things back to normal, without considering the hurt feelings and humiliation she had endured. Martha arrived just as the argument was intensifying. She was accompanied by a young woman with curly hair, who introduced herself as Dr. Sarah, the local veterinarian. "Ms. Martha told me about your ewe. I came to take a look, if you'll allow me." The veterinarian's presence changed the course of the conversation. Brandon grew curious about what was special about Snowball, while Emily gave permission for the examination. Dr. Sarah examined Snowball for nearly an hour, taking notes on her notepad. Her expression grew more interested with each discovery. "This ewe has very rare genetic characteristics. The quality of milk she produces is exceptional, with nutritional properties superior to normal. Besides, the wool has a texture and durability I haven't seen in years." "Does that mean she's worth money?" asked Brandon, always direct. "She's worth a lot of money. Specialized breeders would pay well for an animal like this. And if she's pregnant—" "Pregnant?" Emily was startled. "I need to run some tests, but from palpation I believe so. If the offspring inherit the mother's traits, you'll be sitting on a small fortune." The revelation completely changed the conversation's dynamic. Brandon, who until then seemed reluctant to confront his mother, suddenly showed more interest in resolving the situation. Martha, who was watching everything attentively, made an observation nobody expected. "Brandon, did you know your paternal grandmother and Emily's grandmother were great friends?" Everyone turned to look at the lady, surprised by the information. "Dorothy and your grandmother Deborah were inseparable when they were young. They always said one day the families would unite. Your mother Margaret knows this very well." Brandon seemed confused. He had never heard this family story. "Ms. Martha, my mother never mentioned anything about that." "Of course she didn't. Margaret was always envious of the friendship they had. When your grandmother Deborah chose Dorothy as your mother's godmother, Margaret became jealous." Emily listened with growing interest. Her grandmother Dorothy always spoke about a special friend from her youth, but had never mentioned the name Deborah. The rain started again, forcing everyone to take better shelter inside the barn. It was in this intimate setting that Martha continued revealing secrets from the past that shed new light on the present conflict. Dorothy left this special sheep for Emily because she knew the genetic value of the lineage. It wasn't an ordinary gift. It was a planned inheritance. "What do you mean?" Emily moved closer, interested. "Your grandmother raised special sheep for decades. Snowball descends from a rare lineage that Dorothy preserved for years. She always said that when she died, the sheep should go to a family member who knew how to care for it properly. Brandon processed the information with difficulty. If that were true, it meant his mother was wrong about many things. Dr. Sarah, who had remained silent during the family revelations, asked a technical question. "Miss Martha, do you know if there's any genealogical record of this sheep lineage?" "Yes, there is. Dorothy kept all the papers at her house." "Emily, do you remember the document box your grandmother left?" Emily remembered immediately. The box was stored in the room she occupied at Margaret's house. It contained certificates, old photos, and various papers she had never examined in detail. "I need to get that box, but how? Margaret won't let me into the house." "I'll get it," said Brandon, finally taking action. "I have the right to enter my own house." Martha made a suggestion that surprised everyone. "Why don't you all come to my house for dinner tonight? I can prepare a hot bath for Emily and a decent meal for everyone. Meanwhile, Brandon can go get the documents." The proposal was unanimously accepted. Emily was tired of the barn. Brandon needed a serious conversation away from his mother, and Dr. Sarah wanted to examine the documents about Snowball's lineage more closely. Martha's house was small but cozy, decorated with antique furniture and family photographs. The lady prepared a hot bath for Emily, while Brandon went out to face Margaret. The confrontation at the Thompson family house was more intense than Brandon expected. Margaret was in the kitchen preparing dinner when he entered, determined to get Emily's documents. "Where have you been? You've barely been home for 3 weeks. Mum, I need the box of documents that was in Emily's room." Margaret stopped stirring the beans and turned to face her son. "What box? I threw everything out. I don't want anything from that woman in my house." "You did what?" Brandon raised his voice for the first time in years. "I threw it in the trash. It was collected yesterday." Brandon felt the anger rise in his chest. His mother had deliberately destroyed important documents, probably without even knowing what they contained. "Mom, those documents proved that the sheep belongs to Emily. You accused her of theft." "And it does belong. That animal came from our property." "No, Mom. The sheep was a gift from her grandmother, and apparently it's worth a lot of money." Margaret turned completely to face her son, with an expression mixing surprise and suspicion. "What do you mean it's worth money?" Brandon told her about the veterinarian's visit and the discoveries about Snowball's rarity. As he spoke, he saw his mother's expression gradually change. "If this sheep is worth so much, then it stays here. Emily can come back, but the animal doesn't leave the property." "Mum, you're not understanding. The sheep isn't ours. It never was ours." It was at that moment that Margaret revealed something that left Brandon stunned. "I know very well where that sheep came from. Dorothy, your wife's grandmother, offered me a sheep from the same lineage years ago. I refused because I thought it was too much pride for a simple family like ours." "What do you mean you refused?" "Dorothy said that the families should unite, that it was destiny, old woman nonsense. But if I had known the animals were worth so much..." Brandon realized his mother regretted the decision made years before. Pride had prevented her from accepting a valuable gift, and now she saw the opportunity slipping through her fingers again. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out, now continuing. Meanwhile, at Martha's house, Emily was enjoying her first hot shower in weeks. The warm water relaxed her tense muscles and calmed her restless mind. Snowball had been settled in the backyard, grazing peacefully. Dr. Sarah used the time to talk with Martha about the history of the Thompson and Dorothy families. "Miss Martha, did you know Emily's grandmother well?" "Dorothy was my comadre. I baptized one of her daughters who passed away as a baby. She was a wise woman, knew a lot about animal breeding. And about this special lineage of sheep. Dorothy inherited the first animals from her father, who was a breeder in Canada. She always said she kept the best ones for special occasions." Emily came out of the bathroom refreshed, wearing a nightgown borrowed from Martha. Her belly was more noticeable without the loose clothes she had been wearing lately. "How are you feeling, dear?" "Better. It had been weeks since I had a hot shower." Dr. Sarah approached with an encouraging smile. Emily, I need to ask about Snowball's health history. Did your grandmother leave any records about the lineage? She had a notebook where she wrote everything about the animals, but it stayed at Margaret's house, along with other documents. At that moment, Brandon arrived at Martha's house with a grim expression. Everyone immediately realized something had gone wrong. "Did you get the documents?" asked Emily. "My mother threw everything out. It was collected yesterday by the garbage truck. The silence that followed was heavy. Without the documents, it would be much harder to prove Snowball's ownership and its special lineage." Dr. Sarah, however, didn't seem discouraged. "There are other ways to prove the lineage. I can do genetic tests that will show the animal's origin. It's more expensive, but it's possible." "And who's going to pay for these tests?" asked Brandon. "I can try to get authorization from the university." This rare type of animal is of interest to genetic research. Martha, who had remained thoughtful, made an unexpected suggestion. "What if we go to the dump? Sometimes papers don't get mixed up with the rest of the trash." The idea seemed absurd, but it was the only chance to recover the documents. Brandon offered to go the next day along with Emily. During dinner, Martha told more stories about the friendship between Dorothy and Deborah, Brandon's grandmother. The two had been inseparable in their youth, dreaming of a future where their families would be united. They used to say that destiny would find a way to bring their children or grandchildren together. When Brandon was born, Dorothy was very happy. She said there was finally a boy in the Thompson family. "My mother never told me that story," said Brandon, intrigued. Margaret was always jealous. When Deborah chose Dorothy as her godmother, the friendship between the two cooled. Margaret felt overlooked. Emily listened to the revelations with growing emotion. Her grandmother had always talked about signs of destiny, about how things happened for a reason. Meeting Brandon and marrying him might really be part of a bigger plan. After dinner, Brandon prepared to go home and face his mother again. Emily, however, decided to spend the night at Martha's house, who had insisted she sleep in a real bed. "Brandon, tomorrow morning we're going to the dump. I need to try to recover those documents." "Em, you're 8 months pregnant. That's no place for you." "It's about my inheritance, Brandon. I'm going." The determination in Emily's voice was clear. She had learned in recent weeks that she needed to fight for herself, even while pregnant. That night, Emily slept deeply for the first time in weeks. She dreamed of her grandmother, Dorothy, who smiled and pointed at Snowball, as if giving her approval for everything that was happening. Brandon, on the other hand, spent the night awake, reflecting on Martha's revelations. His mother had withheld important information about the family history, and that bothered him deeply. The next morning, Margaret was in the kitchen making coffee when Brandon came down for breakfast. "Where did you spend the night?" "At Ms. Martha's house, talking with Emily. I hope you talked some sense into her. This story about a valuable sheep is nonsense." Brandon poured his coffee and sat at the table, determined to have a serious conversation with his mother. "Mom, why did you never tell me about the friendship between my grandmother and Emily's grandmother?" Margaret almost dropped her coffee cup. "Who told you that nonsense?" "Miss Martha. She said you knew the story very well. Martha should mind her own business." "Mom, is it true or not?" Margaret sighed, realizing she could no longer avoid the subject. "It's true. Your grandmother, Deborah, and Dorothy were close friends, but that was a long time ago." "And why did you never tell me?" "Because I didn't think it was important. Youthful friendships come and go." Brandon realized there was much more to the story than his mother was willing to reveal. The omission seemed deliberate, not casual. Meanwhile, Emily prepared to go to the dump with Martha and Dr. Sarah, who had offered to help with the search. Snowball would stay at Martha's house, under the care of a neighbor. The dump in Riverdale was 15 kilometers from the town. It was a desolate place, surrounded by vultures and a strong smell that could be detected miles away. "Are you sure you want to do this?" asked Dr. Sarah when they arrived at the site. "I am. Those documents are all I have left from my grandmother. The person in charge of the dump, Mr. Jack, was very helpful when he heard the story. He remembered the truck that had unloaded the trash from the area where Margaret lived. This week's trash is over there in that area. You can search, but use gloves and masks. The search was tough and nauseating. Emily, even though pregnant, insisted on taking part. Martha and Dr. Sarah helped her, sorting through trash bags and looking for papers or boxes. After 2 hours of searching, when they were almost giving up, Martha shouted, "I found it! There's a box here." It was a shoebox, damp and dirty, but recognizable. Emily picked it up with trembling hands and carefully opened it. Inside were dozens of documents, photographs, and stained but still legible papers. Among them was a small notebook with notes about sheep breeding. "It's Grandma's notebook!" exclaimed Emily with tears in her eyes. Dr. Sarah quickly examined the notebook and was impressed with the level of detail in the notes. "Your grandmother was an exceptional breeder. These notes are a treasure for any geneticist." Among the papers, there were also old letters. Martha immediately recognized the handwriting of Deborah, Brandon's grandmother. "These letters are from Brandon's grandmother to your grandmother. Look at the dates. They corresponded for decades." Emily carefully opened one of the letters. The ink had faded, but it was still possible to read. "Dear Dorothy, I hope that one day our grandchildren will meet and fulfill the dream we always had. The sheep you offered me will wait in your family until the right moment. Destiny will know when the time comes. With affection, Deborah." The letter was dated 3 years before Brandon's birth. Emily felt a shiver, realizing that her grandmother and Brandon's grandmother had planned this meeting decades before it happened. Martha, reading over Emily's shoulder, was moved. "Look, girls, they truly believed that destiny would unite the families." Dr. Sarah, always practical, made an important observation. "With these documents, we can prove not only Snowball's ownership, but also the entire special lineage. This is more valuable than we imagined." The return to town was made in contemplative silence. Each one processed the implications of the discoveries. Emily felt that she finally understood the bigger plan her grandmother had orchestrated. When they arrived at Martha's house, Brandon was already waiting, anxious to know the outcome of the search. "Did you manage to find anything?" Emily showed the recovered box and the letters. When Brandon read the correspondence between his grandmother and Dorothy, his expression changed completely. "My grandmother really planned all this?" "Apparently, yes. And your mother knew everything." Brandon sat down heavily in a chair. The revelations were changing his perception of the whole family situation. Dr. Sarah took the opportunity to make a professional proposal. "Emily, with these documents, I can find a serious buyer for Snowball. Or you could start your own breeding operation. The demand for this lineage is high." "How much do you think it's worth?" asked Brandon. "A breeding sheep of this quality could be worth between 15,000 to 20,000 rees. If she's pregnant with twins or triplets, it could double that value." The amounts mentioned were unimaginable for Emily and Brandon. With that money, they could buy their own house and start an independent life. Martha, always wise, made an important observation. "Before selling Snowball, don't you think you should talk to Margaret? Show her the letters." "What for?" asked Brandon. "Because maybe she'll understand that she was fighting against destiny, and because a united family is worth more than any money." Martha's suggestion made sense. If there was a chance for genuine reconciliation, it was worth trying before making drastic decisions. Brandon offered to speak with his mother first, paving the way for a possible conversation between the two women. "I'll show her the letters. If my grandmother and Emily's grandmother really planned all this, my mother needs to know." That afternoon, Brandon returned home determined to confront Margaret with the truth. He found his mother in the yard, tending to the chickens. "Mom, I need to show you something." Margaret looked suspicious when she saw the letters in her son's hands. "What is this?" "Letters from my grandmother to Emily's grandmother. We found them in the trash." Margaret's face paled when she recognized her own mother's handwriting. "Where did you get these?" "At the dump. Emily insisted on searching until she found them." Brandon read some passages from the letters aloud. With each word, he saw his mother's expression change. Margaret sat down on the wooden bench in the yard, as if her legs could no longer support her. "My mother really wrote this." "She did, for decades. She and Dorothy planned for our families to be united, and you knew about it." Margaret remained silent for long minutes, processing the revelations. When she finally spoke, her voice was choked. "I was jealous of their friendship. Dorothy was always prettier, smarter, more loved by everyone. When my mother chose her as godmother, I felt rejected. But Mom, they wanted to unite the families through us. Why did you fight against it? Because I was afraid you would choose her family over ours, that you would abandon me like my mother did when she preferred Dorothy's company. Brandon finally understood the root of the problem. His mother didn't hate Emily for who she was, but for representing an old emotional wound that never healed. Margaret sobbed quietly. When Emily appeared in your life, I saw my mother in her, the same way of speaking, of smiling, of caring for animals. It was as if Dorothy had come back to take my son away. Brandon approached his mother, and for the first time in years hugged her tenderly. Mom, no one is going to take your son away, but Emily will be the mother of your grandchild. She is part of the family now. Margaret cried in her son's arms, releasing decades of pent-up resentment. It was a moment of healing that both had needed for a long time. Brandon, I made a terrible mistake. I kicked a pregnant woman out of the house because of ghosts from the past. There's still time to fix it, Mom. Will she forgive me? I don't know, Mom, but you can try. Margaret stood up, wiped her tears, and made a decision. I'm going to get her right now. Mom, let me go first, to prepare the way. No, Brandon. I made the mistake. I have to fix it. Margaret quickly got ready and headed toward Martha's house. Brandon accompanied her, worried about Emily's reaction. When they arrived at the yellow house, they found Emily in the yard, carefully brushing Snowball. The sheep was fatter, clearly pregnant. Martha greeted the visitors with surprise, but soon noticed the change in Margaret's posture. Good afternoon, Margaret. It's been so long since we've spoken. Good afternoon, Martha. I came to speak with my daughter-in-law. Emily turned when she heard her mother-in-law's voice. Her first reaction was protective, positioning herself near Snowball. Margaret approached slowly, with hesitant steps. When she was a few meters from Emily, she stopped and spoke in a choked voice. Emily, I need to apologize. The apology took Emily by surprise. She expected anything but humility from Margaret. Brandon showed me the letters from my mother to your grandmother. I knew about their friendship, but I didn't know they had planned our family union. Emily remained silent, processing her mother-in-law's words. I kicked you out because of old jealousies, because of wounds I've carried since childhood. That doesn't justify what I did, but it explains it. Margaret moved a little closer. You're carrying my grandchild. He'll be born in just a few weeks. This is where you should be, at home, being cared for by family. Margaret's words touched Emily's heart deeply. During all those weeks in the shed, she had dreamed of this moment of reconciliation. Miss Margaret, you hurt me deeply. You humiliated me in front of my husband. I know, my dear, and I will carry this guilt for the rest of my life. Snowball approached Margaret, sniffing her curiously. The sheep seemed to sense the change in the woman's energy. This sheep is truly special, isn't she? Said Margaret, petting Snowball hesitantly. She's my grandmother's legacy. She always said Snowball would bring me luck when I needed it most. Your grandmother was a wise woman, and I was a fool. Martha watched the dialogue with emotion, seeing two women who cared for each other trying to overcome a painful misunderstanding. Dr. Sarah took the moment to inform them about the tests she had done on Snowball. The sheep is pregnant with triplets. According to the tests, they all appear healthy and share the same special characteristics as their mother. The news lifted the spirits of everyone present. 3 offspring from a rare lineage represented a complete change in the family's financial situation. Margaret, still hesitant, made a proposal. Emily, how about we go back home? We can prepare a special room for the baby and a better pasture for Snowball. Emily looked at Brandon, seeking confirmation that he supported his mother's decision. It would be good to have our family united when our son is born. The prospect of a genuine reconciliation was tempting, but Emily still had fears. What if we start fighting again? What if you change your mind? Margaret understood her daughter-in-law's hesitation. Emily, I read all the letters your grandmother and my mother exchanged. They dreamed of this moment for decades. I won't fight destiny any longer. Martha, always the mediator, made a practical suggestion. Why doesn't Emily spend a few days at your house? If things go well, she stays. If not, she can always come back here. The proposal seemed reasonable to everyone. Emily agreed to try, but with one condition. Snowball stays with me wherever I am. Of course, my dear. The sheep is rightfully yours. The move back to the Thompson house happened that same day. Brandon and Margaret carried Emily's few belongings while she walked slowly with Snowball. The room that had been hers was exactly as she had left it. Margaret had lied about throwing everything away. She had kept it all, secretly hoping for her daughter-in-law's return. I missed you, Emily. The house felt empty without you. I missed home too, Miss Margaret. That night, the family had dinner together for the first time in weeks. The conversation flowed naturally, as if the conflict had never existed. Margaret showed genuine interest in Emily's pregnancy, asking how she was feeling and offering special care. Next week we have a prenatal appointment. Would you like to come along? I would love to, my dear. The reconciliation seemed sincere, but it would be tested by the challenges yet to come. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now, continuing. 3 days after Emily's return, a van pulled up in front of the Thompson property. Out stepped a well-dressed man accompanied by a woman carrying a briefcase. Brandon answered the door, curious about the unexpected visitors. Good morning. I'm Michael Anderson, a breeder specializing in rare sheep. This is my partner, Anna Page. We came to talk about the special sheep you have. How did you hear about Snowball? Dr. Sarah gave us your contact. We're interested in making a purchase offer. Emily, who was in the kitchen with Margaret, came to the door when she heard the conversation. The sheep is not for sale, she said firmly. Michael smiled, accustomed to initial resistance. We didn't come just to buy. We came to propose a partnership. You provide the breeding ewe, and we'll bring the structure and technical knowledge. Anna Page opened her briefcase and showed prepared documents. Our proposal is for a $50,000 down payment, plus 20% of the breeding profits for the next 5 years. The amounts mentioned were astronomical for the Thompson family. Brandon swallowed hard while Margaret moved closer to hear better. $50,000, repeated Emily, incredulous. That's just the beginning. With this ewe's lineage, we could make $500,000 in the coming years. Margaret whispered in Emily's ear. Honey, with that money you could buy your own house, a car. But Emily was hesitant. Snowball wasn't just a valuable animal. She was her connection to her grandmother, her lifelong companion. We need time to think. Of course, but our offer has a deadline. Other breeders are interested too. Michael left a business card and said goodbye, promising to return in 3 days for an answer. After the visitors left, the family gathered to discuss the proposal. Opinions were divided. Brandon saw the opportunity as a chance for financial independence. Margaret was excited about the prospect of prosperity. Emily, however, felt that selling Snowball would betray her grandmother's memory. Think about our son. With that money, he'll have opportunities we never had. Brandon, my grandmother left Snowball to me for a reason. It wasn't for me to sell, it was for me to care for. The discussion continued through the afternoon. Each presented valid arguments, but they couldn't reach a consensus. It was Margaret who had a different idea. What if we kept Snowball here and started our own business? Why give 20% to strangers when we can keep everything? Her mother-in-law's suggestion surprised Emily. It was a proposal that balanced sentimental value with financial potential. But we don't understand anything about commercial breeding. We can learn, Doctor. Sarah can guide us. Brandon found the idea interesting but impractical. We'd need a lot of money to set up proper facilities. Not necessarily, said Margaret. We have space, we have the breeding ewe. We can start small and grow gradually. Emily was liking the idea. Keeping Snowball while still prospering financially seemed like the best of both worlds. Let's talk to Dr. Sarah before giving Michael an answer. The veterinarian arrived the next day, bringing equipment to perform new tests on Snowball. The ewe was very close to delivering triplets. You need to decide soon. She could give birth at any moment. Dr. Sarah, is it feasible for us to set up our own breeding operation here? Perfectly feasible. With Snowball's genetics, you could start with just a few animals and expand gradually. The veterinarian explained that a small operation could generate about $20,000 per year, increasing as the flock grew. It's less money than Michael's proposal, but you'd maintain total control. Emily felt more confident with this option. It was a way to honor her grandmother's legacy while building a prosperous future for the family. That evening during dinner, she announced her decision. We're declining Michael's proposal. Snowball stays here and we'll start our own breeding business. Brandon and Margaret agreed, excited about the prospect of a family business. We'll be special sheep breeders, said Margaret, smiling, and our son will grow up knowing how to care for animals like previous generations, Emily added. The decision was made. Now they needed to prepare for the changes that would come with the birth of the triplets and the human baby. 2 days later, Michael returned to hear the answer. When Emily communicated the refusal, he wasn't surprised. I expected that. Someone who has an animal like that doesn't give it up easily. But are you still interested in future business? Always. When you have animals to sell, come see us. Michael left on friendly terms, leaving the door open for future partnerships. That same afternoon, Snowball began showing signs of labor. Emily, who was also close to giving birth, watched the ewe with extra attention. She's restless, pacing back and forth, observed Margaret. Dr. Sarah was urgently called. When she arrived, she confirmed that the birth was imminent. Triplets are always more complicated. Let's keep an eye on her. The whole family took turns watching Snowball through the night. It was like waiting for a family member to be born. At 4 a.m, the stronger contractions began. Emily, despite being nearly 9 months pregnant, insisted on staying by Snowball's side. You should rest, said Brandon. Snowball stayed with me when I was alone. Now it's my turn to be with her. The first lamb was born at 5:20 in the morning. It was a small female, but perfectly formed, with the same soft white wool as her mother. She's beautiful, exclaimed Margaret, moved. The second lamb came 40 minutes later, a male slightly larger than his sister. The third birth was more complicated, requiring the vet's intervention. It's another male, but he's having trouble breathing, informed Dr. Sarah. Everyone grew tense as the vet worked to stabilize the lamb. After a few anxious minutes, the little animal began breathing normally. He'll be fine. Just needed a little help to get started. Snowball showed a strong maternal instinct, licking and warming the 3 lambs with dedication. It was a moving sight to see. They're perfect, whispered Emily with tears in her eyes. Brandon hugged her from behind, also emotional at the birth. Our family is growing. Margaret approached her grand lambs tenderly. What names are we going to give them? Emily had thought about it during the pregnancy. The female will be called Hope. The larger male will be Destiny, and the smallest will be Miracle. The chosen names reflected what those animals meant to the family. Hope for a better future, fulfillment of a planned destiny, and the miracle of family reconciliation. Dr. Sarah performed the first exams on the lambs and confirmed that all had inherited their mother's special traits. You've just become the owners of 4 extremely valuable animals. With the birth of the triplets, the reality of the family business began to take shape. They would need to invest in property improvements, learn about specialized breeding, and establish business contacts. Margaret surprised everyone by revealing she had secretly saved money for years. I have $15,000 saved. We can use it to improve the pasture and build a proper barn. Why did you never tell us about this money? Asked Brandon. It was for emergencies, and I think the time has come to use it. Her mother-in-law's gesture deeply touched Emily. It was another demonstration that the reconciliation was genuine. A week after the triplets' birth, Emily went into labor. The contractions started in the early hours, waking the whole house. Brandon panicked, but Margaret kept calm. Son, go get the midwife. I'll stay with Emily. Ms. Eleanor, an experienced midwife from the area, arrived quickly. She had helped deliver half the children in Riverdale. How are you feeling, my dear? The contractions are strong, but I can handle it. The labor lasted 6 hours. Throughout that time, Margaret remained by Emily's side, offering support and encouragement. "You're strong, dear. You're doing very well." Late in the morning, Ethan Thompson was born, a healthy boy weighing 3 kilograms and 200 grams. When Miss Eleanor placed the baby in Emily's arms, all the tension and pain disappeared. "He's perfect," she murmured, kissing her son's forehead. Brandon was too emotional to speak. Seeing his child in his wife's arms was the fulfillment of a dream he had nearly lost because of pride. Margaret approached her grandson with reverence. "May I hold him?" "Of course, Grandma. He's your grandson." As she held Ethan for the first time, Margaret began to cry. He was the first grandchild, the first baby of the new generation of the Thompson family. "He has Brandon's eyes when he was a baby." "And Emily's nose," added Brandon. Ethan's arrival officially marked the beginning of a new phase in the family's life. They were now parents, grandmother, and breeders of rare animals. During Emily's recovery period, the household routine organized itself around caring for the baby and Snowball's puppies. It was a symphony of feedings, diaper changes, and monitoring the animals. Martha visited daily, bringing special foods for the new mother and offering wisdom accumulated over decades of experience. "Emily, you need to rest when the baby sleeps. Don't try to do everything at once." Dr. Sarah also became a frequent presence on the property, monitoring the puppy's development and advising on special care. "The triplets are growing perfectly. In a few months we can start receiving visits from those interested in buying animals from the lineage." The prospect of future sales excited the family. With the money from the first transactions, they could invest in property improvements and expand the business. Brandon built a special nursery for the puppies, with proper heating and space for Snowball to care for her babies comfortably. "It turned out beautiful, son," praised Margaret. "Your grandmother Deborah would be proud." The mention of his grandmother brought fond memories to Brandon. He remembered hearing stories about her friendship with Dorothy without fully understanding the significance at the time. "Mom, do you think they knew things would happen exactly like this?" "I think they dreamed of it, and the dreams of mothers and grandmothers have special power." 2 weeks after Ethan's birth, an unexpected visitor arrived. An elegant lady, about 60 years old, driving an expensive car, appeared. "Good afternoon. I'm Helen Dorothy Wilson, daughter of Dorothy Oliveira." Emily almost fainted upon hearing the name. It was her grandmother's daughter she didn't even know existed. "You're my aunt?" "Yes, dear. Your grandmother was my mother too. I've been living in New York City for the past 30 years. Helen explained that she had learned of Emily's existence through mutual friends in Riverdale. When she heard about the special sheep, she decided to make the trip to meet her niece. Mom always talked about a special granddaughter who would take care of the family heritage. Now I understand it was you." Helen's arrival brought new information about the sheep lineage. She revealed that the family had detailed genealogical documents, kept in New York City. "I have records of 5 generations of special sheep. Your Snowball is a direct descendant of Star, the founding sheep of the lineage." The documents Helen brought significantly multiplied the animal's value. With a proven and detailed genealogy, Snowball's puppies could be sold for even higher prices. "Helen, why did you never seek out our family before?" asked Margaret. "Because Mom asked me to wait. She said the right time would come when the next generation was ready to take on the responsibility." Helen stayed on the property for a week, getting to know the family and helping organize the business's official documents. She had business experience and offered valuable guidance. "You need to register the breeding officially, obtain proper licenses, and establish standard contracts for the sales." Brandon was impressed by his sister-in-law's knowledge. She transformed what was a family idea into a structured business plan. "Helen, why don't you stay here and help us run the business? I can't move from New York City, but I can be a remote partner. I can handle the commercial and sales aspects in the capital." The proposal was perfect. Helen had contacts in New York City who could buy animals at premium prices, while the family handled the breeding in the countryside. During Helen's stay, another surprise emerged. She revealed that Dorothy had left a specific letter to be opened when Emily had her first child. "Where is this letter?" asked Emily eagerly. "Here with me. Mom instructed me to deliver it personally. Helen took from her bag a yellowed envelope, sealed with red wax. Written on the front, in Dorothy's handwriting, "To Emily when you become a mother." With trembling hands, Emily opened the letter and read aloud, "My dear granddaughter, if you are reading this letter, it means you have become a mother and fulfilled the dream that Deborah and I nurtured for decades. The special sheep I left for you are not just valuable animals. They are symbols of perseverance, love, and faith in the future. Raise your children knowing they are the fruits of a love that spanned generations. Take good care of Snowball and her descendants. They will take good care of you. With all my eternal love, Grandma Dorothy." The letter moved everyone present. It was like receiving a posthumous blessing from the family matriarch. Helen stayed until Ethan's baptism, which took place at the Main Street Church of Riverdale. The ceremony brought together the entire community, including Martha, Dr. Sarah, and several friendly families. During the celebration, Father John mentioned how beautiful it was to see a family united after so much suffering. Ethan is born into a family that has learned the value of forgiveness and reconciliation. After the baptism, the family organized a party at the property. It was the first time in years that the Thompson house had received so many guests. Snowball's puppies, now 1 month old, were the center of attention. Hope, destiny, and miracle enchanted the children present. Michael Anderson appeared at the party, not to make proposals but to congratulate the family on the success of their breeding. "You made the right choice. Having control of your own business is always better." Helen took advantage of Michael's presence to establish business contacts. They discussed possibilities for future partnerships without compromising the family's independence. "When you have animals to sell, I can connect you with serious buyers," offered Michael. The party lasted until late hours. It was a celebration not only of Ethan's birth but of the entire transformation the family had undergone. When Helen returned to New York City, she left established communication channels for the family partnership. She would handle sales in the capital, while Brandon and Emily ran the breeding in the countryside. "I'll be back in 3 months to see how the business is going," she promised before leaving. With the return to normal routine, the family focused on establishing the new business procedures. Brandon built new facilities, Margaret organized the animal records, and Emily took care of both Ethan and the puppies. The first sale happened when the triplets turned 3 months old. A breeder from Texas bought Destiny for $12,000, an amount that exceeded all expectations. $12,000 for a puppy. Brandon couldn't believe it. "And it's just the beginning," said Emily. "Hope and Miracle are worth even more as breeding females." The money from the sale was immediately invested in property improvements. They built proper fences, a temperature-controlled shed, and bought modern equipment. Dr. Sarah became the official veterinarian of the breeding operation, making regular visits and taking care of all the animals' health. "You're on the right track. With Snowball and the 2 females, you can have a sustainable breeding operation for many years." The business grew steadily. Each month, new people arrived interested in buying animals or establishing partnerships. Helen kept her promise and returned 3 months later, bringing proposals from major breeders in New York City. "I have orders for 6 animals. If we can deliver quality, we can establish annual contracts." The financial success brought stability to the family, but also new challenges. They needed to learn about management, accounting, and business relations. Brandon enrolled in a sheep breeding course at the regional university. Emily studied animal genetics through books borrowed from Helen. "If we're going to do this, we're going to do it right," she said, always determined. Margaret specialized in the administrative part, keeping detailed records of each animal, their characteristics, and lineage. "Organization is key in any business," she repeated, applying lessons learned over decades of life. Ethan grew up in the midst of this family fervor. At 6 months old, he already showed a fascination with the animals, especially Snowball. "He's going to be a natural breeder," observed Margaret, watching her grandson interact with the sheep. "Like his great-grandfather," added Emily, referring to Dorothy's grandfather who had started the special lineage. The family tradition was perpetuating through the generations, each contributing their part to the legacy. 1 year after Ethan's birth, the Thompson breeding had become a regional reference for special sheep. They had 12 high-quality animals and a waiting list of buyers. "I never imagined we'd come this far," confessed Brandon during a family dinner. "Your grandmother and my grandmother imagined," replied Emily. "They planted the seed, we just nurtured its growth." Helen visited the property quarterly, always bringing new contacts and business opportunities. She had become not just a partner, but a true mentor to the family. "You've exceeded my expectations. Mum would be proud." The mention of Dorothy always moved Emily. She felt her grandmother's presence in every achievement, in every healthy animal born, in every moment of family harmony. During the second year of operation, a proposal emerged that would test the family's values. A large corporate group offered to buy the entire breeding operation for $1 million sum. $1.5 million raised for everything, announced Helen during a video conference. The amount was tempting, representing complete financial independence for the entire family. Brandon was torn. With that money, they could buy more land, invest in other businesses, secure Ethan's future. Margaret was inclined to accept. "It's more money than our family has seen in 3 generations. Emily, however, felt that accepting would betray Dorothy's legacy. The sheep weren't just business, they were a family responsibility. "If we sell everything, we lose control over the lineage. That's not what my grandmother wanted." The family spent weeks debating the proposal. Each presented valid arguments, but couldn't reach a consensus. It was Ethan who, unconsciously, helped with the decision. At 18 months old, he already called Snowball Grandma Sheep and showed a special connection with all the animals. "Look at him," said Emily. "He's already part of this tradition. How can we take that away from him?" Brandon understood his wife's point. Ethan was growing up in an environment where he learned responsibility, animal care, and the value of family work. "You're right, Em. Some things are worth more than money." Margaret, initially reluctant, ended up agreeing. "If that's what you want, I support you. A united family is worth more than any amount of money." The decision to turn down the offer strengthened family bonds and reaffirmed their commitment to Dorothy's legacy. Helen fully supported the family's choice. "You did what Mom would have done. She always prioritized continuity over immediate profit." With the breeding operation established and thriving, the Thompson family had found not just financial stability, but life purpose. Brandon had become a respected sheep breeding specialist. Emily developed new genetic improvement methods. Margaret managed operations efficiently. Ethan grew up surrounded by love, learning values that would stay with him throughout his life. One Sunday afternoon, 2 years after Emily's departure, the family gathered in the backyard to celebrate Ethan's 2nd birthday. Snowball grazed peacefully with Hope and Miracle, now mothers to their own offspring. The flock had grown to 20 healthy animals. "Who would have thought it all started with a fight and 1 sheep?" Margaret reflected. "It wasn't a fight, Grandma," Emily corrected. "It was destiny pushing us to grow." Brandon embraced his wife and son, looking over the prosperous property around them. "Sometimes what looks like the end is just a new beginning in disguise." Martha, now considered Ethan's honorary grandmother, arrived at the party carrying a homemade cake. "How's our special sheep breeding family doing?" "Better than ever, Miss Martha," Emily replied. Dr. Sarah also attended, bringing news about breeding competitions the family could enter. "You're already at national competition level." Helen joined the party via video call on the tablet Brandon had recently bought. "Happy birthday, Ethan. Aunt Helen has a special gift for you." The gift was a children's book about sheep that would become the boys' favorite in the coming months. During the party, Father John officially blessed the family breeding operation, recognizing their work as a blessed mission. God smiles when he sees united families working with love. That evening, after all guests had left, the family sat on the porch gazing at the stars. Ethan slept in Emily's arms, tired from the party. Snowball approached the group as she always did when sensing special moments. "Thank you, Grandma Dorothy," Emily whispered toward the sky. "Thank you for planning all this." Brandon took his wife's hand. "Thank you from me, too, for making me understand what truly matters in life." Margaret, watching her sleeping grandson, reflected quietly. "Forgiveness is the hardest and most important thing there is. If I hadn't asked for forgiveness, I would have missed all this happiness." The conversation continued late into the night, revisiting difficult moments and celebrating achievements. "Remember when I left home in the rain carrying only Snowball?" Emily said. "It was the saddest day of my life," Margaret admitted, "but it was also the day our true union began." Brandon agreed. "Sometimes we need to lose something to understand its value." In the following years, the Thompson breeding became one of the country's most respected operations. Ethan grew up learning about responsibility, family tradition, and love for animals. By age 5, he was already helping with basic care for the lambs, always supervised by adults. "Mummy, why is Snowball special?" he asked one day. "Because she carries the love of many generations, son, and now you're part of this chain of love too." The answer satisfied the boy, who continued playing with the animals. Helen moved permanently to Riverdale after retiring, taking a more active role in the breeding operation. "New York City was good for my career, but this is where my heart has always been." With Helen living on the property, the family built a larger house with space for everyone to live together comfortably. Martha, now over 80, continued to be the family's informal advisor, always bringing wisdom in important moments. "Life is like raising sheep," she would say. "It takes patience, care, and faith in the future." Dr. Sarah became not only the veterinarian, but also a great friend of the family. She often brought veterinary students to see the exemplary breeding operation. "You are a benchmark for how to combine family tradition with modern techniques." The success of the Thompson breeding inspired other families in the region to invest in specialized breeding. Brandon became an informal mentor to new breeders. "The secret isn't just in the animals," he taught. "It's in the unity of the family and respect for tradition." Margaret, now a proud grandmother and respected businesswoman, was often invited to speak about family management. "Managing a family business requires a lot of dialogue and a lot of forgiveness," was her main advice. Emily developed innovative genetic improvement techniques that were adopted by other breeders. She became a national technical reference. "Everything I know I learned by observing Snowball and studying my grandmother's records." Every year, the family organized a party in honor of Dorothy and Deborah, celebrating the vision of the two friends who had united the families. "They aren't here physically, but they are in every animal born, in every moment of our happiness," Helen would say during these events. Ethan grew up hearing the stories of his great-grandmothers, understanding that he was part of something bigger than just a simple family. "One day, will I continue the tradition, Mom?" "If you want to, son. But first, you need to study hard and learn how to take good care of the animals." The boy took the responsibility seriously, always asking about the care and showing genuine interest in the breeding. When Ethan turned 8, the family decided to formalize the family succession. Brandon and Emily created a family business statute, ensuring that future generations would maintain the core values. "We want Ethan to know that this responsibility comes with a lot of love, but also with a lot of commitment," explained Brandon. Helen suggested creating a family historical archive, documenting all the stories and traditions for future generations. Each generation must know where they came from to know where they're going. The archive included the original letters between Dorothy and Deborah, old photographs, genealogical records of the animals, and testimonies from all family members. Margaret contributed her memories about the conflict and reconciliation. "I want future generations to know that to err is human, but to persist in error is a choice." Emily wrote at length about the experience of being expelled and then welcomed back. Forgiveness doesn't erase the pain, but it transforms it into wisdom. Brandon documented his journey from an indecisive man to a responsible family leader. "I learned that being a man isn't just about making decisions, it's about taking responsibility for them." The family archive became a family treasure, frequently consulted when doubts or minor conflicts arose. 10 years after Emily's initial expulsion, the Thompson family owned one of the largest special sheep breeding operations in the country. They had over 100 registered animals, employed 5 local workers, and had sales contracts throughout the United States. Ethan, now 9 years old, already showed exceptional skills in handling the animals. He has the natural gift that his great-grandmother Dorothy had, observed Helen. Snowball, still the matriarch of the flock at 15, continued to produce offspring of exceptional quality. She is a miracle of nature, said Dr. Sarah. We rarely see sheep reproducing with such quality at an advanced age. The longevity and fertility of Snowball became legendary among breeders. Many came from far away just to see the famous sheep. She's our ambassador, Emily would joke. During a national breeders' fair, the Thompson family received the Breeding Operation of the Year award, the highest recognition in the industry. This award isn't ours, Emily said during her acceptance speech. It belongs to our grandmother Dorothy, who had the vision to preserve this special lineage. The award brought even more prestige to the breeding operation, increasing demand for Thompson animals. Brandon had to create a waiting list for interested buyers. We have orders for the next 2 years, he reported during a family meeting. The success also brought new challenges. Large companies started making purchase offers again, some reaching astronomical amounts. $5 million for the entire operation, announced a representative during a visit. Ethan, who now participated in important family discussions, asked a question that surprised the adults. If we sell, who will take care of the sheep with the same kindness as we do? The boy's question perfectly summarized the family values. It wasn't just about business, but about responsibility toward living beings. Ethan is right, said Margaret. Money gets spent, but responsibility is forever. The family once again refused the offers, reaffirming their commitment to family tradition. Helen, now 65 years old, began training Ethan to take on greater responsibilities in the breeding operation. At 10 years old, you can already learn about genealogy and records. Ethan proved to be a dedicated student, absorbing knowledge with impressive ease. Aunt Helen, why was our family chosen to care for the special sheep? Because your great-grandmothers saw in us the necessary qualities: love, dedication, and humility. Helen's response planted an important seed in the boy's mind. He began to understand that privilege comes with responsibility. By 11, Ethan was actively helping with the breeding, always supervised, but showing growing competence. He's a prodigy, commented Dr. Sarah. I've never seen a child with such intuition for handling animals. Emily watched her son with pride and concern. She wanted him to have a normal childhood, but also recognized his special talent. Ethan, do you really want to follow this path when you grow up? Yes, Mom. The sheep need us and we need them. The boy's maturity impressed all the adults in the family. Brandon began involving Ethan in less complex decisions, gradually preparing him for future responsibilities. Participating in decisions teaches more than just observing, he explained. Ethan took his participation seriously, always asking smart questions and making surprisingly mature suggestions. During a visit from important buyers, he made an observation that impressed the visitors. You want to buy our sheep because they're special, but they're only special because they're loved. If we take them without love, they won't be special anymore. The 11-year-old's philosophy deeply touched the buyers, who left the property with a new understanding of animal breeding. Your son has wisdom that many adults lack, commented one of the visitors. End of story. And now, dear listeners, we've reached the end of this moving journey. What did you think of Emily and her family's transformation? Leave your opinions in the comments about the power of forgiveness and how destiny works in mysterious ways. Subscribe to the channel for more heartwarming stories.